what do you think is behind why we love Ravenloft so much? I grew up with Ravenloft. It's like a classic setting within D&D, but I remember like even for when the original module came out, it was such a massive deal, and we are still coming back to Ravenloft to this day. Like, why do you think Ravenloft is this popular?
It's one of those things where it's like, I think the answer to like why Ravenloft is so popular sort of boils down to like, why is horror so popular? Because I think the thing that Ravenloft does really well is it encompasses very much everything we love about like the horror genre, and also all of the subgenres within it, whether you like folk horror, whether you like cryptids, whether you like vampires and gothic architecture, whether you like dark masquerade balls or body horror. You can find pretty much everything there in Ravenloft, and there's something fun and almost alluring, in the same way that like horror and horror movies are fun and alluring, of like exploring those kind of darker themes of like being put in these treacherous situations and sort of testing the limits of your character and what kind of things you might experience and what you can and can't do. And I also think there's a lot of thrill and fun in being scared in a almost like a safe and controlled way.
What did you enjoy the most? You don't have to give us details, but like, what did you have the most fun designing for Ravenloft
always
in
the
this new book?
subclasses. Always the subclasses and character options. And it's always fun to lean into those horror character tropes and figure out how we want to make and manifest those options in ways that players can engage with, but also make their own. I had a lot of fun designing a bunch of the subclasses. I got to delve into the very weird and I guess the best word for it is the weird and grotesque. And getting funky with it is always fun. And then also like the new backgrounds and the dark gifts. I think there's something fun with the dark gift system where you get options that give you something, but also if things go wrong, there's a consequence. And I think there's something so just meaty as a player to have that sort of Damocles like hanging above your head of, well, if I do this, then something might happen.
And that's so important to the horror genre.
Yeah.
Like there's always a cost to, when you look at like any type of like horror element, especially when it's something that affects someone. Like if you do have an example of like vampirism or being a werewolf, there's always a negative to that power or something unstable. And that's kind of like what people are, yearning for as players typically is like, I want the negative too.
Yeah. I think there is something fun in like the horror genre of like bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
And exploring what that means to individual characters and what that means to you as a person and as someone experiencing the genre. And I think like all of the like the dark gifts and like all of these certain things that your character can experience kind of explore ways that you can be fundamentally changed, and how you kind of reconcile with that. In a way that also reflects how in the real world things can change you and your experiences can change you and you have to kind of reconcile with that, but you have the extra layer of supernatural on top, which I think really lends itself to a fun kind of catharsis within the world of horror. One of my favorite things I designed in the book is the updated Haunted One background, which first appeared in Curse of Strahd. And so with all the background redesign that we've done in 5.5, all the backgrounds now come with feats. And so we wanted to give the Haunted One a feat. And I actually took a lot of inspiration from like my own experiences with trauma and other things and how that feat for that background manifested in the kind of things that you get as a part of that feat, which is called the Survivor feat, which is actually really fun and like is a little personal little nugget that is sort of buried within the rest of the book.
You are going to get to actually run a game in an actual castle for D&D in a castle.
Yes, I am. They let me out of my cage, Todd.
What is that? What is that adventure going to be like? And what is it going to be like running a Ravenloft campaign in an actual castle?
So, to be clear, I haven't seen the castle yet. I don't know what the vibes of the castle are, but it's going to be so fun. The campaign I am running, and I actually have not told my players about this yet because I was waiting for the book announcements to sort of percolate on the internet. But I will be taking my lovely, lovely players to the domain of dread of Innsmouth. And so the campaign is titled Escape from Innsmouth, and it is actually going to be a mid to low level Innsmouth campaign. In the book, there are campaign outlines that you can use to create a level 1 up through level 20 campaign that is centered in a specific domain of dread. And the one for Innsmouth focuses a lot on a little bit of a higher level thing. With Cthulhu in the book, he is a very high level stat block, as expected. And so for my lovely players in the castle, I wanted to give them an experience that really introduces them to D&D's version of Innsmouth while also exploring kind of what that lower level, you're not entirely fighting Cthulhu. Cthulhu will probably kill you if you face him kind of vibe. And also I just love the sort of, I got a lot of inspiration when reading through the Innsmouth chapter from also like Twin Peaks and like Pacific Northwest and like New England sort of setting where it's like that craggy coastline drenched in fog. So I'm really excited to kind of explore those aesthetics as well as that interdimensional, almost liminal horror.
Yeah, what is behind like the popularity of like Cthulhu, and it's so fantastic to have. You know, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
That was a big part of the teaser for Ravenloft. Horrors Within is the fact that Cthulhu is like joining the domains of dread.
Yes.
Like, can you speak a little bit about that?
So I'm a little bit of an oddball in that like I did not grow up. I was not a horror kid growing up. I did not grow up really liking horror media and stuff. And actually for the longest time I said I didn't like horror. And then I kept writing and reading Ravenloft like modules and books. And I was like, no, I love writing for this. Oh, I think I actually really like writing for horror. I just don't like being like jump scared.
Yeah.
I don't like horror that is without that understanding of like control and boundaries and stuff. And I think the Ravenloft, going back to your earlier question, I think Ravenloft is great for exploring what you enjoy about horror in a space that has boundaries and feels safe to explore those stranger parts. So I didn't actually grow up knowing a lot about Cthulhu. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think there is something so interesting and odd about the idea of a sort of otherworldly, almost otherworldly extraplanar experience of the world. I think my favorite analogy for Cthulhu and Lovecraftian horror is the idea that like you are an ant, and then for the briefest moment, you become the size of a human. And you see the world around you, and you experience everything, and then you go back, cram that back into your ant brain and your ant body. And I almost think of it like in the idea of if we live in a three-dimensional space, what is it like to see in a different dimension or add another layer on top of that? And I think there is such a fun space to play in where you're like, how does a being like that perceive the world? And also, like, I think there is fun in reclaiming what Cthulhu means and taking it away from some of the previous associations that sort of horror and that genre has previously had. I think it's, at least for me, it's been fun kind of taking my own spin on it and really leaning into that extra dimensional, beyond human mortal comprehension sort of ideas. Like, I think as I'm planning this campaign, letting things not make sense and just be weird and unexplained is something that's so fun. As someone who, I'm a game designer, I like knowing when things are explained. I like knowing the math. I like knowing and having concrete rules. And so being able to design an adventure around an entity who is meant to be mind-bending and otherworldly and not make comprehensible sense to a mere mortal has been really like almost like a brain exercise. And it's super exciting.
What to you makes a great dungeon master?
I think, so I am an interesting test case for learning how to be a dungeon master because the way I learned was through watching. And I know for like a lot of people in D&D and in the hobby, like recently learning how to DM by watching other people DM through live plays, actual plays, etc., has become more common. But when I started DMing, that was very new. Most people had learned to DM by playing, and then playing with a DM, and then eventually taking up that mantle. Where I learned, I DM'd before I actually had played a lot of D&D, and I just kind of jumped right in. And I think for me, as I have grown and developed and gone from someone who was really just sort of fast and loose and didn't know the rules really well to a game designer of the rules, I think the thing that makes a dungeon master great is flexibility. Something that I've had to learn and adapt is this ability to understand and look at your table and very quickly pick up, oh, the players are enjoying this, let's ramp that up. Or the players are actually, I was really hoping they would catch on to this, they're not really grabbing onto it. Okay, we'll pivot and we'll make sure that we characterize and move the story in a way that fits their enjoyment. Being able to roll with the punches and really have that back and forth rapport with your players is something that I think a lot of, that I think makes a really fun DM that I personally like to play with.
What to you makes a great player? Like, what's your advice for like players who are looking to up their game, or that you just like to see when you're running a game at a table?
So it's one of those things where I'm of two minds of it. Because on one hand, I love it when a player knows the rules. As the player who knows the rules,
Yeah.
I have so many of my DMs. I got invited to a game from some friends, and some of my friends were like, "Hey, just like make sure that Mackenzie like is one of the game designers for D&D, right? Like, you're gonna have to be careful." And they were like, "Yeah, it'll be fine." And then I think multiple times they had a look of pure despair on their face. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna do this as my action, and then this is my bonus action, and tactically moving around the battlefield. And I found that really fun as a player. And despite their face of despair as their encounter was shredded, the DM really enjoyed it too. And so I love it when players find the ways to use the rules creatively. And so that's something I love. But on the other hand, I love when players are super flexible and they see something and they take inspiration from it, and then they just run with it regardless of what the rules say. I think that is a thing that is really fun about role-playing games in D&D, where, yeah, the rules are a framework, they're a guideline, but they are meant in the same way as like improv prompts. They are meant to inspire and be a launching off point. And I love, love, love watching players be like, okay, so this says I can do this, so could I maybe do, and suggest something. And I think, and that goes back to what makes a good DM, is being able to roll with those punches and create that kind of communication of, you've done unexpected something, I'm not going to shut it down, I'm going to redirect that energy and create a dynamic story for everyone.
So on top of you getting to go to D&D in the castle, you're going to be running games from the actual person who's designed a bunch of these subclasses and player options. There's a lot going on. Clearly UA, Unearthed Arcana, there are many more books to come.
Oh yes, yes. It was so much fun working on the most recent Unearthed Arcana. We obviously, Unearthed Arcana is always cooking in the background,
right.
So there's...
Very edgy Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah, this past one was fun and interesting. Very much tying into like the vibes of Ravenloft as we approach Horror Within, getting into people's hands.
By the time people are watching this video, there's been an actual play series that's been announced.
Yes.
And that's going to be with Jasmine Bular as the Dungeon Master.
Yeah, we were talking about what makes a good Dungeon Master, and like Jasmine is such an amazing, fun Dungeon Master. Getting to play with her, it was so fun. She does the thing where it's like you can ping pong back, or I'll throw, as a player I threw her something and then she just immediately ping ponged it back. I think I successfully convinced an elder brain that, his daughter sucks. Like we're
Spoilers. Yeah.
we're just here to like we're just guests to visit the house. Yeah, your daughter like also sucks, so don't mind us. And then we went and like stole something and then bounced out.
Perfect.
Which was so fun. And the way that like that was super unexpected, and I was playing the lowest charisma character, but being able to have that rapport, even if I had just, that was my first time playing with her, I had just really kind of actually sat down and talked with her beyond just sort of seeing her at events and other things, and it was so much fun, and I am so excited to see what she does and how she brings Ravenloft to life.
And it's really like an all-star cast of folks. Yeah. Like we're bringing back people from like Baldur's Gate 3, like Neil, we've got Dev, we've got some other people that you are familiar with who have been on other D&D actual play shows on top of everything else. So it's a really great cast.
Yes, I'm so excited. Like I talk a lot about like how I got into D&D was actual plays. And I still think and I still maintain that watching people play is one of the best ways to learn how to play and get the courage to take the admittedly sometimes terrifying step of being open enough to role play at the table and improv and create these collaborative stories, because it is kind of opening up a part of yourself to the story and the experience, and giving up and relinquishing a little bit of control for the collaboration of the table. And I think for me, watching people do that through actual plays really helped me feel like it was something that I could do, and I'm so excited to have an actual play that we're able to carry that on and in a way like pass that forward and help more people kind of get the courage to jump in at the table and start playing.
Perfect. And what's your advice? Or you got like kind of the insider track on like what's your advice for people who want to dive into Ravenloft Horrors Within, how to run it and everything else?
I think my advice is, hey, if you think that you don't like horror, you might actually like horror. It might be a specific genre or a specific trope that you don't like.
There are a lot of genres of horror within
There is a
Ravenloft.
lot of genre. There is a wonderful section. One of my favorite sections of the book breaks down the genres of horror. And as someone who just sort of, for the longest time, associated horror with jump scare and gore, I was like, I don't like horror. That's not my thing. I associated horror with like all the Halloween overlays of different amusement parks where people like get jump scared and stuff. And then I realized like, oh, I love like thoughtful horror or psychological horror. And being able to read and see those genres broken down really made me reevaluate what I do and don't like as a storyteller. And I think that's my biggest sort of takeaway and advice to people who get Horrors Within and open it up. Go look through those genres. Look at the things that speak out to you. And you may not like a certain thing about horror, but because you are the storyteller and you are creating this campaign at your table, you are free to remove and change the elements that make you uncomfortable, but also add those elements that you want to explore and see where the boundaries of the mist lie for you. And I think that's something so fun and freeing and cathartic about exploring Ravenloft. Getting to test those boundaries and be scared and thrilled and experience those emotions in such a wonderfully imaginative and incredibly expressive environment.